The river was calm that day, but the scene by its banks was anything but. Sarah stood frozen, her heart hammering in her chest as she watched the dog, tattered, filthy and unmoving, stare out into the flowing waters. For the past 30 days, this loyal creature, a German shepherd named Max, had refused to leave the spot. No matter how many rescuers had tried, no matter how much food they offered, Max remained by the riverbank, eyes wide with an intense, almost desperate look. There was something haunting about it. The dog wasn't just waiting. He was guarding something. As Sarah approached, she noticed a slight trembling in Max's body. He hadn't let anyone close in days, and yet he didn't back away. This time his eyes locked onto hers. She could see the pain, the exhaustion, but also the resolve. What was he waiting for? Why hadn't he moved? Max had been found at the riverbank 3 weeks ago, already looking gaunt and disheveled. The rescuers had assumed he was just another stray who'd gotten lost, but when they tried to coax him away, he resisted in a way that no one had ever seen before. There was something deeper, something tragic, that bound him to this spot. The first day Sarah had arrived, she saw the dog standing there, his fur matted and his eyes empty. It wasn't just the wilderness. Max's spirit seemed to have faded into the river itself. "What's wrong with him?" Sarah asked one of the volunteers, Michael, who had been trying to lure the dog with treats for days. "I don't know," Michael said, shaking his head. "But we've never seen anything like this before. He won't move from this spot. No one knows why." Each day the volunteers came back, trying everything from food to gentle coaxing. Max didn't budge. His eyes never left the water. It was as though he was waiting for something, or someone. But what? The rescue team made calls, contacted animal behavior specialists, and even reached out to local shelters. But despite their best efforts, Max wouldn't leave. Some whispered that the dog had been traumatized. Others speculated he was waiting for his owner. But there were no signs. No evidence of a family or a past. But something about the way he stood there, so still, so determined, didn't sit right with Sarah. There had to be more to this story. Max's presence had taken its toll on the team. The volunteers had seen animals in all kinds of distress, but nothing compared to the sheer devotion Max had shown. His eyes, which once looked wild and filled with fear, now reflected an unwavering determination. He no longer shied away from their gaze. He seemed resolute, steadfast, unwilling to leave. He had become an enigma, one that no one could solve. But still, his bond to the river was undeniable. As the days wore on, the situation grew more desperate. Max had not eaten for days. His body was thin, his ribs visible under his once glorious coat. Despite their best efforts, Max refused all food, no matter how much he was offered. His body grew weaker, but his spirit remained strong. Sarah had made it a point to visit him daily, bringing him food and sitting by the riverbank, hoping that her presence would somehow offer him some comfort. She felt a strange connection to the dog. There was something about his loyalty, his unwavering determination that tugged at her heartstrings. She couldn't help but wonder what had caused him to behave this way. She had read about animals in distress, about trauma and grief, but never had she encountered anything like this. One morning, Sarah arrived to find Max in the same spot, but this time his behavior had changed. His eyes were locked onto something in the distance. For a moment, Sarah thought it was just another trick of the light, but then she heard it, a faint whimper coming from the riverbank. It was so quiet at first that she wasn't sure if she had heard it at all. But then it came again, a soft, desperate sound. Max's head snapped up. His eyes widened and his body tensed. For the first time in weeks, he stood and began to move toward the sound. Sarah watched in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what was happening. She followed him, her heart pounding as she watched the dog walk with purpose. The sound grew louder as they moved closer to the water. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she saw what Max had been guarding all this time. There, nestled on the riverbank, was a small, shivering puppy. It was barely a year old, its fur soaked, its tiny body trembling from the cold. The puppy's eyes were wide with fear, and it let out a pitiful whimper as Max approached. Max immediately dropped to the ground beside the puppy, his body shaking with what could only be described as a mix of relief and urgency. He nudged the puppy gently, as if coaxing it to move, but the small creature didn't respond. It was clear that the puppy had been there for days, possibly even longer. It was weak, dehydrated, and near death. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she watched Max, the once proud German shepherd, act with such tenderness. He wasn't just waiting for someone or something. He had been guarding this helpless puppy all along. He had sacrificed everything, his food, his safety, his strength, to keep this puppy safe. He had been protecting it from the dangers of the wild, from the predators, from the elements. Max had become the puppy's guardian angel. Without hesitation, Sarah called for the rescuers to bring the necessary supplies. They quickly worked to stabilize the puppy, but Max didn't leave its side. He remained there, vigilant, his eyes never leaving the small creature he had sworn to protect. The team worked quickly to transport the puppy to safety, but as they did, Max stayed behind, standing tall on the riverbank. Sarah felt a wave of emotions wash over her. She had always known that animals were capable of incredible acts of loyalty, but nothing could have prepared her for the sheer devotion Max had shown. He had put the life of this puppy above his own, protecting it without a second thought, without hesitation. It was a bond that transcended everything. It was a bond that went beyond instinct, beyond survival. It was love, pure and unconditional. As the rescuers took the puppy to the shelter, Max began to stumble. His body weakened from weeks of fasting and guarding. Sarah knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. Max's eyes met hers, and for the first time in what felt like forever, they softened. He was tired. He had done his job, and now he could rest. The puppy, now named Charlie, was nursed back to health, and eventually it found a loving home. Max, too, recovered with the help of the rescue team. But as Sarah watched them both playing together, she couldn't help but think of the incredible love and loyalty that had brought them together. Max had risked everything for a creature he had never met, a creature he had no reason to protect. And in doing so, he had shown the world what true love and sacrifice looked like. It took weeks for Max to fully recover, but when he did, he found his place in a new home, surrounded by love and care. And as for Charlie, he grew stronger each day, knowing that he had been saved by the most selfless dog Sarah had ever met. Max had not only saved a life, he had given a piece of himself in the process. Sarah often thought about that day by the riverbank, about the dog who had refused to leave, about the puppy who had been saved. She thought about the sacrifice, the devotion, and the love that had bound them together. She knew that Max's story was one that would stay with her forever. It was a story of loyalty, of sacrifice, and of the incredible bond that can exist between animals and those they love. The river continued to flow, its waters quiet once more, but Sarah would never forget the dog who had waited for 30 days and the puppy he had saved. Max's story is a powerful reminder of the depth of love and loyalty that animals have for each other. Even in the darkest of times, they will stand by those they care about, no matter the cost. This incredible bond between Max and Charlie will forever live on in the hearts of those who heard their story.